Hello, everyone. Welcome to another class for the front end track. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are joining us from. Okay, we already have our instructor live with us, Rogers Chayuga. Sorry, I didn't get the pronunciation right. Yeah, correct me if I'm
Yes.
wrong. Yeah, so we have a few persons joining us live on Twitch and on YouTube. Welcome once again, everyone. And please, for those of us joining, please do well to drop a message on the front end track room so we have more persons joining us. So, instructor is already live here with us on the call. So, please drop a message on Discord so we'll have more persons joining us because we'll be starting immediately. Okay, I'll do a brief introduction. So, we have Rogers Chayuga is a senior front end engineer from Twitter. He works in Twitter and it's based in Kenya. So Rogers will be taking us on today's class. Yes, so Rogers, thank you for joining us today. You can start. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Hey
All
guys,
right.
welcome to this class.
Rogers, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
All right.
Can you hear me?
Okay. So welcome. Yeah, you can start.
Okay. Thank you so much, Manuela, for this invite. I'm so happy to be here. Welcome everyone who are streaming from Twitch, who are streaming from YouTube and any other platform. Today's class, we are going to talk about using array methods on the DOM asynchronous JavaScript. And I hope you guys are going to enjoy. I'm going to take it simple from zero to advanced hero. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy this class. So welcome. So when we say using array methods on the DOM asynchronous JavaScript, what comes to your mind? First thing is, what's a DOM? Another thing, what are arrays? And what are array methods? And what is asynchronous JavaScript? Is JavaScript synchronous or asynchronous? So those are the kind of questions that you're going to answer, and you're going to see how they form and blend each other to make a very good front-end developer. Welcome aboard. We're going to start with introduction to DOM. What's a DOM? First of all, DOM stands from Document Object Model, which is a programming interface for HTML and XML document. It represents the web page or XML document as a tree-like structure, where each node in the tree represents an object in the document. So you have the nodes and you have the document with all the nodes. JavaScript can interact and manipulate the DOM using a set of built-in methods and properties. So these methods and the properties allow JavaScript to access, create, modify, and delete HTML elements, attributes, and text nodes on a web page. So as we continue, we're going to learn about all these methods and how we are going to manipulate the DOM using JavaScript. This is going to be fun. So I've got a couple of examples that we are going to see how we are going to manipulate the DOM so that we start from zero as we climb up and see how we are going to do it asynchronously. Because as we know, JavaScript is not asynchronous. It is synchronous single-threaded language. So we need to change it for us to give us that functionality of asynchronous functionality. Be my guest. With me here, I have I've created a folder and I decided to call it, decided to call it array methods and asynchronous JavaScript. So I have 3 files and I have 1 folder. This folder has 2 images. I have 1 file called HTML, index.html. I have 1 file called intro to DOM.js. This is a JavaScript file. And we also have a style sheet, styles.css. These 3 complement each other to make a very good front end, flexible, and you're going to learn how you're going to do it the best way. So get ready, take notes if you can, ask questions on YouTube, Twitch, wherever you can find, ask questions, and I'll be glad to stop and answer your questions. So inside this file, normally when you're creating a document for a web page, you'll have HTML document. This is going to be the index. So the index is what is going to display the data that you want to display to the user. How is it going to display it? One, it has the structure. Normally what we say in software development, or maybe front end for this case, HTML is like the backbone of a human being. It has the bones and everything that needs. Then the CSS comes to play and adds the flesh. So like in my hand, I have my bones and I have a flesh. This, by at this stage, this looks okay, and it can do it looks good and so many and so many things. But now we need to make this hand function. How are we going to make this hand function if we only have a bone and a flesh? We need to add what you call the JavaScript. So JavaScript adds the functionality. It is the brain behind what I'm doing, how I'm talking, how I'm doing my gestures. This is JavaScript in terms of software development. So let's see. Let's start with the bone. So in the bone here, I've created some file here, and I'm going to go through it very quickly so that you can understand what we're doing. So here we have a HTML5 document. Why do I say it is HTML5 document? Because of this doc type HTML. Once you create an index.html file and you have a doc type HTML, this one tells the browser that this file that I'm going to display, it is an HTML5 document. Then you start with this. You start with an HTML, and always once you open the HTML tag, you have to go down and close the HTML tag. So now that we've opened the HTML and we've closed it, we need to deal with all the tags inside the HTML. Now, there are two things that you need to know. In HTML, as we know, because of the body example that I gave, we had the bonds. Inside the bonds, we have a bond that takes the head and takes the body. So like we are dividing it from my neck going up is the head, and that is what you're calling the head. It's going to think, it's going to reason for us. For example, what type of styling do we need in my body? Am I slim? Am I fat? Am I brown? Am I dark? So the brain needs to know. That is why we are adding this line here. This line has the styles, which is the flesh in this context. It has the styles inside the HTML document. This HTML document, once you add the style, first of all, we have three types of styling in HTML. We have the inline styling, we have the block, and we have the external styling. Inline and block are good, but when you're trying to expand your project, or maybe your website, is going to be hard to maintain. It's going to be hard to reuse components. You'll have to redo or maybe to rewrite all the attributes that you need for the styles, which is not good, which is not something that you want to do in a very big project, like let's say a dashboard that is very big for a company. So what you do, you create a file called CSS, which is here. I've created a file called CSS. Inside this file called CSS, I've written some few styles. I won't dwell much into CSS style. I'm going to do this in another session, another class, sometime when I'll be invited in this channel again. So this is the CSS. I've tried to bring in the H1, the class, and all the tags that we need, and try to style it so that it can give me what I want to see on the front end page. Now, when you go back to index.html, we are linking it. How do we link it? You have that link tag that is self-closing. We close it here. And inside that link, you need to tell the link what type is it. So I've told you it is a text stroke CSS, so that it can know the type of text or maybe file that we're trying to import. Then we need to tell the HTML what is the relationship between this HTML file and the file that you're trying to import. So I'm telling it, we are trying to import it. This is the relationship, is going to be a style sheet. So the style sheet, now the brain knows that I am not the functionalities, I am the flesh. So it's going to access this file with the mind that this is a style sheet. Now we have the href. This one, it is the specific route where Hello?
Sorry, I interrupt. Can you zoom in on your your code editor a bit?
Okay, sure. Sorry. Can see it. Let me just expand it a little bit. All right, close this one. That's okay?
Yes, fine. Thank you.
Good. Good. So this one is going to tell the HTML the exact path where we are calling the styles from. So where are we calling it from? You're calling it from the styles.css. It's not normally that you have to write it this way. You can come here and have this file inside another folder, and we call it CSS folder, and you can drag it inside here. Now, when we do this, the HTML will not know where we are calling our styles from unless we tell it now. Once you're there, go to CSS folder. Inside that CSS folder, there is a file called styles.css. Okay. Now the head knows where to get the flash from. Now we need to tell the head, what's your name? What's my name? My name is Rogers Chayuga. Now my brain knows that my name is Rogers Chayuga. But now how is the web going to know its name? We need to tell it with the title. When you come here, when you come inside the title, we are going to tell it. Now, I decided to call it using array methods on the DOM asynchronous JavaScript, which is the current title or topic that we're discussing today. Good. Now we close the head. We are done with the head. We are done with thinking about everything that you are going to display. Now it is the body to respond according to what the brain thinks, according to how the brain wants it to do. First of all, I'll go back and delete this one because I don't want to have so many folders. And also I'm going to remove this one outside the styles, and I'm going to delete this one so that we can have our files and structure the way it was previously. So this one is okay. Now, the second thing that we are going to have is the body. This is the body. The body starts slightly below the neck, going downwards. So when you look at this body, we have a couple of tags that is inside this body. I'm going to tell you what they're going to do, then display it on the browser. But before I do that, this is what you're going to do. I'm going to have this body, and it's going to be closed here. So remember, inside the HTML tags, we only had two tags, the head and the body. The head is already done. Now the body. Inside the body, we have two more tags that are going to be so important to us. You can decide to call this main, and you can decide to call this a footer so that you can have a footer. But before we go there, let me run this code and see what's going to happen in our browser. This is going to be one of the pathetic designs that I've ever done, but just wait, you're going to learn from it. So inside the I'm going to zoom out a little bit so that I can have my, I need to go live. This is just an extension. If you need this extension called go live, you go to extension and search for go live. When you go live, it's going to search for it. If it's there, you're going to install it. If it's not there, if it's there, you're going to run it. If it's not there, you're going to install it. I've already installed it. I don't know why it's not displaying here, but yeah, it's called share live. So let's go back to our code. I'm going to click the go live. Then it's going to display something here. Now, what's this? Why is it here? That is the question that we need to ask ourselves. First of all, we need to go back and ask the browser. We were told that you're going to have a name for this browser, for this website. Where is it? Then you're going to find it here using array methods on the DOM asynchronous JavaScript. So that is why you're having it here. Okay, now the body is going to come here. This is the body. The body, we have this div. I decided to give it both div, an ID and a class. You can do that. You can have a class, you can have an ID, and you can also have class and ID in the same tag so that you can have different manipulation if you so wish. Now, inside this div, sorry, just saw something here. Okay. Inside this div, we have a link. Okay. And this link is an image. So this image is a link. We can have an image that is clickable. So when you click it, it's going to open to another browser, or it's going to open in the same browser or maybe tab. But for this case, what I've done here is going to open in the same tab. It's not going to lead us anywhere because we are directing it to the home page. So when you have href and you're giving it a slash, it means it's going to maintain, go back to the home. It doesn't matter where we're viewing the page from. It's going to be about page, contact page. Once you click that image, it's going to take you to this path, which is the home. This is the image that you're going to have. Inside the main, we have something here that is very interesting. This is what you're having. We have this button called Learn Frontend, and we are live, and it's giving us the time. We are going to manipulate this and see how it's going to unfold at the end of the day. After that, you're going to have this section. I would wish to call it a footer, but again, we also have something here. So now, according to this context, this is now going to be our footer. We have the main, we have this part, which is going to give us this. So this image, I've just grabbed it from one of my Facebook accounts or something and throw it inside there. I just wanted to make it very quick so that you can have a page look good. But it's very good practice if you're going to have a link to an image, to an external image, or maybe external video, you don't make a very long link. You customize the link so that it can be very short, or maybe make it like a variable so that you can only use a variable inside the SRC, which is the source. Now this paragraph is saying creation of, then it's not going to lead us anywhere unless I give it a link so that it's going to take us somewhere else. And my name is there, which is here. Then just after that, we are having this this div. This div is saying follow me on YouTube, and I've given a YouTube link to my channel. Now, after that, you've noticed that there is something very unique that we've seen here. We haven't talked about it, we haven't touched it, but this is now how we are going to link our JavaScript. Now the functionality, how we are going to respond to reactions and everything. This is how we are going to link it to our page. When you go back to our side of VS Code, we are going to see this JavaScript file. It's currently blank, but you're going to do a lot of things inside here. Let's go back to HTML. When an HTML document sees a tag called script, it definitely knows that this is going to be the instructions, how I'm going to function, how I'm going to do things, how I'm going to respond to so many things that are going to happen, which is going to be nice because it's going to make our website interactive. Now, inside here, we just call it like that. Now, at first I said that you're going to have everything to think about inside the head. Why are we having it just below the body? Is the JavaScript going to think with the foot? No, that's not the case. The reason as to why we are going to have this tag just before the closing tag of the body is one. Because generally, JavaScript is synchronous, single-threaded language. It will always have this behavior of running all the scripts inside that file. Then after that is when it's going to come back to our HTML document, which is not going to be fun. If you're going to interact with a website that is going to load forever, and behind the scene is interacting or maybe loading the JavaScript file so that it is going to give you what you want while you're still waiting, it's not a very good practice. You have to load what you have, load the bone and the flesh, as you wait for the brain to think about what it's supposed to do. So that is why we are having it here. So advantage of having it here is the website is going to be fast. Then two, because JavaScript is a synchronous, single-threaded language, you're going to avoid that lagging, and the website is going to load faster for SOE purposes. Now, a lot of stories. Let's go back to the code and see what JavaScript can do. First of all, this is all about CSS and HTML. We're having it here. We're not going to touch anything HTML. We're not going to touch anything CSS. We are now going back to our introduction to DOM.js file and see how we're going to manipulate so many things. What are we going to start with? For you to manipulate the DOM with JavaScript, you need first to know that you have the file that you're going to manipulate. Then two, you need to locate the specific part that you want to manipulate. Then get the specific identifier that you want to use to point to what you're going to manipulate. Then give it the instruction. Then the instruction need to have a solution to what you're trying to fix. For instance, let me see. If I want to change, maybe I want to, let me just add a text. I want to say something like using array method on DOM in asynchronous JavaScript. How am I going to do it? One, I'm going to have the document. This is my document. Now, I'm going to get element by ID. We have so many ways to get selectors in our DOM, but I'm choosing ID so that I can specifically change the ID that I'm trying to point. Now that comes to my mind. What is ID? What is class? What are the tags? How do we select? Now, there are so many ways that you can select a specific node in a file, HTML file for this purpose. One is the class. Class, when you give it a class name can change. Class name can be more than once in a file. Class name can be reused. ID, it is a good practice that you don't reuse ID name, so that when you're trying to change something, it doesn't change things that you didn't intend to change. You're only changing the specific part, the specific node of the file using the ID. That is why I chose to use get element by ID. Now, what ID are we trying to get? I'm going to come here to our file, and I'm going to get, I want to add something. You see here, this is where I'm going to add.
Sorry, hello, Rogers.
You meant it?
Sorry for interrupting.
Okay.
Could you zoom in to your screen?
Sorry, my sound is going up and down. It's clear now. Okay, I'm going to comment. This is where we are going to.
So I think you didn't get Ella. Your code editor, could you zoom in a bit?
This is where you're going to add a paragraph. Inside this div, it's blank. And my intention is to have this div display just below the learn frontend button. So this is where you're going to have it in between the we are live and learn frontend. So we are going to select this div using this ID name. The ID name is called my div. I'm going to go back to my file, and I'm going to tell it select get element by ID of my div. For this one, JavaScript will know specifically what you're trying to change. Okay.
Hi, Rogers. Please, can you zoom in on your code editor a bit?
What are we going to do? We are going to add a text. So we are going to say text content. Okay. The text content, what are we going to have in the text content? I say that you're going to add using, let me just copy from somewhere. You can get it.
Hello, Rogers. Can you hear me?
Let me just copy from here so that you're on
Hello,
time.
Rogers. Can you hear me?
So I'll just replace this part. Now we are going to save this part, but first of all, we need to know what's happening here. This is the document that we are having right now, which is the index.html, you remember. Then we are trying to get the specific node that you're trying to change using the get element by ID. So what ID name are we having in the my div? Now, what are we going to do with that? We are going to say text content. So when you say text content, you are going to add that text inside there. So when we save, need to check that everything is okay. Just a minute. Okay, something wrong, troubleshooting, let me see.
Hello, Rogers, can you hear me?
So you see, what we did is not the right thing because we accessed my div, which changed everything. Unfortunately, we changed everything, but that is still a positive thing because we can still change something. Now we need to go back to our HTML, which is now the troubleshooting aspect comes to play. We need to come here and ask ourselves, why did it change everything? And we are discovering that while we were doing our HTML file, we had this div called my div,
Hello, Rogers.
div called my div, and that is where the problem is. Okay, like I said, you shouldn't use ID name twice or more than once in a file. So we are going back and change this into not being called my div, but being called, let's say, my paragraph. Paragraph. So when you change this into my paragraph, we are going to come here and select the specific node, which is my paragraph, and we save. So when you say voila, we have the paragraph inserted in our card. So what have you learned here today? We've learned that we can't reuse the ID name. We should only use ID name more than twice or more than once if it is intentional. Okay, you've seen the blunder, it has changed the whole page. Now, after that, you're going to look at it and say, what else can we do? We can add an element. We can add an element in the HTML file and see how we are going to do it. Now, let's come back here and ask ourselves, if you're going to add an element in our file, what are we going to do? One, we need to ask ourselves, what element are we going to add? For this case, we are going to add, we can add also a paragraph. Then the next thing that we need to ask, we need to say, we need to get a node. We create a node, a specific node for that matter. Then after that, you're going to append the paragraph that we created to the div or the node that you're trying to manipulate. So let's go back to our HTML file. Inside this HTML file, we're going
Hello,
to
Rogers, can you hear me?
the div like it is right now. Then we are going to comment this
If
part.
you can hear me, please drop a message in the chat. Let me know it's not for me.
So paragraph disappears. If we want to get the paragraph back, we need to ask ourselves, if this is the div that we want to manipulate, why should we manipulate the whole div? Why can't we add a paragraph inside the div so that we can have so many tags inside that node, specific node, which is the div? Now let's go back and see how we are going to add a paragraph inside that file. Then after adding the paragraph, we are going to add a text inside that paragraph, then display it on our page. So we know the div is called myParam. So we are going to select it just the way we did. We're going to come here and say, now we're creating a variable called const new paragraph. Let me call it that way. That stands for paragraph. Okay. Now the paragraph that you're going to create, we need to tell JavaScript to create it for us. We are going to tell it inside that document, create an element called a tag called paragraph, and paragraph is denoted by p, small p. So we are going to say document dot create Create what? We are now creating an element because that is a tag. We are creating an element of P. This one is going to create a paragraph inside. And remember to close it. Then something else, we need to have the node that you want to change. Now we are going back and you're going to say const text node so that you can add it inside there. You're going to say the document dot create text node because now you're creating a text node so that it can come into play. Create text node. Now you're creating the node. Now, what text do we want to add inside that node? I still want to have the same text that we had here in our title. So I'll copy it. And insert it here. Now we have two things. We've created a paragraph and you're going to create a text node. Now, after that, what next? How are we going to add it inside there? This is what you're going to do. Let me have some words. This is what you're going to do. You're going to have this paragraph and you're going to append. You're going to append it so that it can be the child or text node. How are we going to do that? We are going to say, now the variable called new param, which you already created, dot, we are going to append it and child. So the new param is the child. Now we are appending it. Where are we appending it? We are appending it. We are appending the text called text node. Okay, so the text node is there. So this is the text and this is the paragraph. Now we are appending the text in the paragraph. We come back here and say, now that we've appended it, where are we going to display it? We need to display it somewhere, remember. We can't just leave it like that. When I save right now, there is nothing that is functioning on my website. I need to tell it where to display it. Now there comes another thing. We need to get the document, then select the ID where specifically we want to display, then append that new param that we manipulated. Let's do this. We're going to have the document, but get element by ID, and we need to ask ourselves, what is the ID name that you want to change? Okay, we're going to come back here inside the index.html. And remember this node, this is the div. We are going to have it here. We're going to copy the mypara, that is the ID that you're going to use. Sorry, let me just type it. mypara. That is the exact ID name that we're using. So this is, yeah, correct. Now after that, what else? We've already selected it. Now we are telling it, I want you to append the child that you are having, and that child is called the new para. So this new para, it is this one. And remember, we updated it here by adding the text node, which is here. So let's see what's going to happen. When I save it here, I'm expecting it to display this text. Or let me just change it a little bit so that it can be different from what we had. Let me just say, let me just give it a using array method on the DOM, or maybe manipulating the DOM. Manipulating the DOM. So we are going to save, and boom, we have our text here. What has happened here? We've created a paragraph, we've created a text, we've appended the text inside the paragraph. Then now we've selected the specific point, the specific node that you're going to change. We've selected it by ID, and the ID is called myPara. And now myPara is going to be appended a child called newPara because we already updated. That is why we are having this text here. Thank you so much. Let me just check my messages. I can see maybe there's some questions. Okay. In case of any question, you can Slack in. Or maybe you can just send to Emanuela and she's going to reach out to me. Okay. I can't hear you, Emanuela. Sorry. You want to text? Let me just have this phone here to display all the questions that are going to come.
Hello, Rogers. Can you hear me now?
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but can you hear me?
No. Oh, you want me to zoom in? Sorry. Sorry, just a moment. Sorry, guys. Is that one better? Yeah. Yeah. In case of any question, just send it to Manuela and she's going to reach out to me and I'm going to do the changes. And now I'm going to leave my chat open so I can see what's happening. Okay, let's go back. Now we've done that. What else can we do? We've already added an element, we've changed some text, and we know how to do it. Now we need to remove some element. We don't like this manipulating the DOM. I need to remove it. I don't have to go back to the HTML and remove it physically. I can do this. I can comment this part, save, and that part is going to disappear. But remember, we are having a file full of lines, let's say 1,000 lines, and you can really trace really quick where that specific point is. So the only thing to do is I'm going to revert back. The only thing to do is we are going to use JavaScript to remove an element. Now, so if you want to remove an element, we can either choose to have a one-liner or maybe 2 lines. Because we've already seen how we are doing it in one-liner code, we are going to have 2 lines. I'm going to create a variable called paragraph. Variable called paragraph. What you're going to do with this variable, you're going to get that specific element that you want to remove. Okay. Let me just see if there is a message for me. Nothing. Okay. LinkedIn is going to be better because it's open now. So we are going to have the paragraph and you're going to tell it just the same way you've done it. I know this is now becoming so boring, but remember, before you get an element, you have to get the document. And give it how you're going to get the specific node that you want to change. Now we want to change, we want to remove, that is, we want to remove an ID by the name myPara the same way we did. So we're going to say get element by ID myPara. Now we have that element. It's stored inside this variable called paragraph. Now what next? We need now to go and say we are having this paragraph. Now go to its parent node and remove that child called paragraph. How are we going to do it? This is supposed to be outside. Now we are coming here now. We are saying paragraph, get the paragraph, get to its parent node, locate the parent node. Okay, now you're locating the parent node. After locating the parent node, what do you want to do? We want to remove that paragraph. Okay, otherwise it won't know where we're removing it from. We're going to remove child. And what is the child's name? Variable that we created there, which is the paragraph. Okay. So let's go back to HTML and see where do we have this mypara before we save. Mypara is here. And this mypara, it is the one that is displaying the text that you want. Okay. So having it to display the text that you want, just a minute, let me see. To remove this one, this is the new syntax for HTML5, and it's we can line it some other time. It's really nice and giving us power into it. So we are going to save this text. So when you save the text, remember that we had the text called text node, which was manipulate the text. It was displaying just below the learn front end. We added it here. And now, because we don't want it and we don't want to delete it from the original file, we are accessing that specific node. Then we are coming to the paragraph that we have. Then you're selecting the parent node for that specific node. Then you are removing the child. Which child? The specific ID that we have, which is here. Okay. That's nice. Very interesting. Now, something else that we need to ask ourselves is, what else can we do? We can add attributes. We can change attributes. For example, right now we are having an image called like JS in very nice iMark, but I don't want it. I want to change that source. I don't want to go back to index.html because we are having it here. I want to believe, let me see, let me get it, this one. So I want to change this attribute called source, SRC. How am I going to do it? First of all, I need to know if I have an ID for this element so that I can select. I can use class, the class name. But remember, we can reuse class names in our files. So we might be changing so many files just with the intention of changing only one. Now I've decided to add an ID to this image. We're having this image tag, and this is the ID. The ID is called my image. So this one is going to display this image. Maybe I can comment it and save. It's not there. I'm going to go back to it and save it. Now we are having that image. We need to change the source so that you can have a different image. How are we going to do it? So how are we going to do it? Somebody might ask. We go back to our JavaScript. So our JavaScript allow me to comment everything here so that we can go back to our default. Good. Now we are going to change that image. How are we going to do it? The first thing that clicks to your head is get the document. Now that we have the document, how are we going to select the specific node that you want to change? Get element by ID. ID is, we gave it an ID name of my image. I'm going to copy it so that I don't have a different spelling for that, and I'm going to paste it here. Now this is the specific part that you're having the image. So what next? We are going to tell it set attribute, because that is an attribute that you want to set. Now we want to set attribute to a different source, but having a set attribute takes in two arguments. One, it is the specific attribute that you want to change, and the value for it. It is like a key value pair. So you're going to say we want to change the SRC, and we are going to have, I have a link here for an image that we are going to change. So let me just grab it really quick. So we are going to have the source, and we are going to have the link to the image that you want to change. Now look at the image right now. We want to change it. We've already selected the part that you want to change. We've already selected the attribute, and you're now giving it the source. So when we save, voila, the image changes. And when it changes like that, it takes the CSS, the styling, the same as the one that was there, because we are not changing the styles. Remember, we are not changing the style. We are only changing the image. Where is it? We're not changing the style. This is the style. It is inside the styles.css. We're not changing it. We're changing the image. What are we changing the image? The source. So we've changed it. That is why we are having a different image. That's nice. That's nice. Somebody might ask, but we are talking about styles. What if we want to change a style with JavaScript? Yes, we can do that. Let's see if we can do that together. Now, we need to ask ourselves, if you're going to change a style for a specific node, what do we need? Like always, we need a document. And the document, we need to get a selector, get the element by ID. What is the ID name? Let me check if I have messages for us. Nothing. On the other side, nothing. Okay, we're good to go. So we are selecting the element, and right here we are having, when you come here, we are having this div. Remember this body. This body is the one that is holding everything up to this point. So this brown thing, I don't know, is it brown? It should be brown. So we are going to change that color brown. So what are we going to do? We are going to select this div, and I gave it an ID. This ID is going to be my div. So this div is what you're going to select. Then you are going to change its background color. Let's go. Now we are going to have my ID, my div is going to be the ID. It's going to be the selector in that specific node. Now, after getting it that way, what else do we need to do? We need to tell it. Now we are not going to tell it to change anything else, but now we are going to be specific. It is the style. Now we are changing the style, but specific. A node. So inside the style, what do we need to change? I think we need to change that background color so that you can give it something fresh or maybe a different color. We can give it red so that it can shout. It's going to be very easy to know that we've changed color from this one to red. So you're going to change it. So style.background color. So background color, it's here. So the background color, the solution for that background color, we are going to tell it to be red. And I'm going to remove this question mark here. We don't need it. Maybe what I'm going to do, I'm just going to have a quick fix and disable the check file so that we don't have all those squiggling on our file. So we have it like that. Now we are changing the background of it. Let's save and see. Boom, the background changed to red, which is nice. So we can do so many things with JavaScript to manipulate everything that we've been doing. Now, somebody might come and ask, you've talked about ID, you've talked about class. How can we use class? We can still use class. Let me give you an example of using a class. We can add a class to a specific node so that we can do a specific thing. For this example, I prepared a style. I'm just going to have it here so that you can see it. If I'm going too fast, let me know. If I'm going too slow, let me know so that we are in sync. Okay. So I'm going to have this active. This background color of active is going to be blank. So it can't do anything. Now I want to make this color to be green. Okay. So I'm going to have this color to be green. Now what I need to do is to give this specific class to our HTML through the JavaScript so that it can have the changes that we need. Okay. Yes, a minute. Okay, Manuela, that's fine. If you can hear me, that's okay. Just send me a text, I'll get it. Okay, so we are having a class called active. Now this class, it's not inside this tree, is not anywhere. Now I need to add this class. So when I add this class, it's going to change a background of something into green. Now, what am I going to change? Can we change? I want to change these. Let me just add here a class name, and I'm going to give it a class of body class. Body, yeah, okay, body class is okay. So we are having this class called body class. Now we are going to access that body class. Once you access that body class, we are going to add another class called active. Once we add that an extra class called active, it's going to change the background of it. Now this is what you're going to do. I'm going to copy this class. And I'm going to save it. I'm going to come into say the intro. And what I'm going to do, I'm now going to select that specific node. Just a minute, I have a message. Okay, that's okay. So we are going to change the class. And remember, as always, get the DOM. Document.get element. Can we do class name? Can we do ID? Let's do class name this time around so that you can see how it's going to be. Because you're having a class, this active is a class. This is a class. So we are going to access it using a class. Now what you're going to do is we are going to add, we've already selected this class. Remember, it is, can I remember it? Yes, body class. Now the body class, we are going to go back into it and add a class list inside that body class. That's very interesting. Class list. So what are we going to do the class list? We are not going to remove, we're not going to change, we are going to add. So class list.add. What are we going to add? Remember this class that we did here? It is called the active. So we're going to copy this and you're going to have it inside here. Let's see what happens to our body. Okay, nothing is happening. Now we need to go back and ask ourselves what's happening. So we are going to troubleshoot together and see what's happening. First of all, we are going to have ID. Okay, something that is very interesting that we need to know. Apparently, if I'm going to change that class name to an ID name, I feel it's going to work. Let's try and learn something from it too. Let's make this one ID. We give it an ID and we save it. So this is the ID. And that means we need to change this one to be select by ID. Okay. So if this is that way, let's go back to our class. The background. I'm trying to troubleshoot and see where I'm having those different classes. Aha. So when we do that, it's going to be very interesting. So get element by ID class, and we are going to have a class list and you're going to add it inside there. Now we save. Once we save, something is not happening. I'm going to inspect my code and see what's happening. I'm going to come here and see the body. And we are not having anything. So this is how you troubleshoot. So we you go back to your inspect and check the element and check if you are having the correct color, the background color, and apparently we are having this. So if you are having this, we need to come here and at least comment it for now and see what's going to happen. My div. Okay, see what's happening here? There is something that is happening here that is very important to note. When you're having a body and you're having an immediate child called a div, that div it's going to occupy 100% of the width of the body and 100% the height of the body. So the body that you are trying to change, it is hidden behind the div that you are trying to change. Look at this. This is what we are trying to, this is what is in front of our body. So what I want to do right now, we are having this div. This is displaying in front of this. We have the body and you have the div. So the div is covering the body, so we can't see what's happening behind the scenes. I want to, let me remove this. And specifically, instead of adding other files, I want to specifically change this, my div, so that we can see how it's done. I'm going to go back to the div and I'm going to select that specific element. So if we select that specific element, now the div is red and we're changing it to this one. So we are going to comment this one first and we are going to save. So when we save, the color changes to active. So what is the color of active? The background color. It goes back to what we had. Now the same is going to apply if you're going to remove the class. So if you're going to remove the class, you are going just to duplicate that really quick and select that. And instead of saying add, we are going to say remove. Something really important that we've noted here is when you're having an HTML file, the body is going to be somewhere hidden that you can't really see it unless you style it. If you're going to have a child inside the body, that child is going to occupy 100% width and 100% height of the body. So whatever you're going to do with the body, if you're not going to manipulate the child, which is the div, manipulate it so that it can be maybe smaller in height or maybe smaller in width, you won't be able to see what's happening in the body because the body now it is covered by the div, so you can't see it. Great. Now something else that we can do, we can also handle event. We can say this is the button. Let me just comment everything. So after commenting everything, we go back to defaults and we won't have that text. Now we need to add something to our button. I need to be in a position, if I click this learn frontend, it takes me somewhere, or maybe it opens a model dialog, or maybe it opens a form so that you can register, or maybe it sends your data to a specific endpoint so that the owner, maybe the author of that course is going to get back to you and communicate to you accordingly. What are we going to do? We are going to select that specific element, which is the button. Once we select it, because we want to click the button, we need to give it an event listener, and it's going to listen to a click. Once you click, we are going to give it a function of what it's going to do once it is clicked. This is how we're going to do it. First of all, you're going to go back to our HTML, and you're going to get the learn front end, which is the button. This is the button. So the button is here and the ID is here. I'm going to copy the ID so that we can select it just the same way we've been doing it. And as always, document.get element by ID, and you're giving it an ID of my button. So we are specifically selecting that button. Good. We are going back. Now, once we get it, what do? We are going to add an event listener. Add event listener. So what event listener are we adding? We're going to add a click event, so that when you click it, it's going to listen, it's going to do what you want it to do. Apart from that, the event listener function takes in two arguments: the event that is being listened to and what is supposed to do, which is not a function. So we have the event, which is a click, and you're going to have a function. This function, we're going to take any argument, which is going to return an alert. So let's return an alert, and it's going to say button. Okay. So once we have that in play, we need to check that our code is okay. That's okay. So we are going to save. Right now I haven't saved. When I click, now it's showing button clicked. Is it this interesting? This is very interesting. JavaScript is very interesting. Maybe somebody say that is something that is already there. Let me comment and try it. Let me save. Let me close this one and try to click. Nothing. I'm clicking right now. But when I uncomment and save and click, it shows an alert. So this alert can be customized. This alert can be something else, can be a form, can be maybe a link, can send you to an email so that it's going to register. So that is how it's done. Apart from that, we can do a couple of things like creating and setting attributes. We can use it. You can retrieve attribute from it. Let me just show you one, how we're going to create an attribute or maybe retrieve it. Then we change this topic to something else that is going to be equally important. Now we have it there. We are going to create and set attribute. How are we going to do it? Like always, it is in this specific document that you're getting the element by ID, and that ID, I want to give it, for the sake of confusion, let me just deal with this div so that it's going to be very easy for me to locate it. So I'm going to have this div, my div has an ID, and I'm going to have it, so I've selected that part. Then what next? We are going to set an attribute. We're going to set an attribute. What kind of attribute are we going to set inside there? We can say we are going to set like data user ID, or maybe just user ID. Okay, just like the event listener, set attribute takes in two arguments: the key and the value. So the key here is user ID, and the value we can give it as something like that. So you have the user ID, and it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Before we save it, let me just comment and try and see if we have something like that. I'm going to inspect. Let me enlarge this. So once I inspect it, I'm going to see the source. We don't have it. We are making sure that we don't have anything that we want to look at. Okay, so we are coming here inside the body. This is the div that you wanted. So let's expand it. So this is where you're going to see that. Now I want to uncomment it, and I'm going to save. First of all, we are confirming that we don't have user ID as an attribute inside here, inside the div. So we don't have it. Oh, my file has saved automatic. I need to undo that. But let me just do that and save. So when we save that, we don't have that attribute. But when I uncomment this and save, we will see the attribute that we've just added, which is here. User ID is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's how we set attribute. You can set any attribute that you want. Lastly, we want to select that attribute. It depends with what you want to do with it. I'm going to show you how to select it. Then maybe you can dig deeper and see how you're going to use it. You're going to create a variable called user ID. And this user ID is going to get data from document, get element by ID my div. Okay. Then what do we want to do? We want to get attribute. Getting the attribute, specifically which attribute are we going to get? We are going to get user, what do you call it? User ID. Okay. Now we have it. When I save right now, the question will be, I'm trying to get it. Where is it? Now, the only way you can do something that kind of data is if you console log it. So we are going to console log this variable called user ID. So when I save here and I go to console, voila. Maybe somebody might say, where did it come from? Let me just say something here really quick and say, this is my user ID, and I'm going to save it. So it's going to show us this is my user ID. So that is how you can manipulate the DOM using the inbuilt methods. And it's very interesting to look at that. Now, if we don't have any questions that are coming my way, I'm going to jump straight into, we're going to look at the arrays because we've already done the DOM. What comes in next? The array methods, so that we can see that everything is flowing well according to how we intended it to be. Some water.
Yeah. Okay, Rogers, can you hear me? Hello, Rogers, can you hear me?
Thank you so much, Kingsblog Network. Ella, I think if you send me a text via LinkedIn is going to be easier so that I can access it very quickly. I'm having my phone with me here, so it's going to be very easy to access it. Just drop me a message.
Okay, Rogers. Hello, Rogers. Can you hear me? Okay. I think maybe the problem is from his settings. Hello, Amaka. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Ella. He said you should send him a message on LinkedIn. So just let him know that questions will be displayed on the screen.
Oh, great, great.
Oh yeah, I
I'll
sent him some messages.
push the
All right.
questions, then I'm going to talk about them later. Okay, let's get back and see what's going to be the overview of array methods. Arrays, what are methods? So how are we going to use them? So what are these? So the first question will be, what is an array? An array is a data structure that contains a collection of elements of the same data type, which can be accessed by their index position. For example, if you're going into a supermarket and you're having a couple of items, banana, oranges, shoes, dress, if you're going to arrange them in an array, the first item that is in the array is going to be index 0, then the second index 1, the third index 2, and it goes there. So inside the array, you're going to have two things, the element and the index. Index always starts with 0. Element always starts with 1. Or maybe you can initialize it so that you can start with any number that you want. But index will always start with a 0. So now that we know an array, let me show you an example of an array. I'm going to create another file here, and I'm going to call it array methods. .js. So we are having it there. But remember, if you're going to have any function that is supposed to be in the bones and the flesh, you need to tell the brain, you need to tell the body. So now that we have an array methods as our JavaScript file, we need to go back to our index.html and change this to reflect the specific action that you want. So this is going to be array method, and save it. Okay, from here going forward, we are not going to use this example. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to call inspect, and I'm going to come here and I'm going to pop it up. Once I pop that out, I'm going to have it here. Okay, so going forward, you're going to use this. Okay, let me see. I want to close this now. Okay, we can just leave it there. Let me just expand it so that everyone can see. Okay, now this is going to be a white blank page that you're going to see everything to displaying on this page. So let's see what's going to happen here. So an array. I'm going to close this file because we don't need it anymore. I'm going to also minimize this side. I'm going to close the index because the only thing that you're going to use for this index.html is to help us to display the JavaScript code in our console log. And this is the only interesting part that we need. We've already linked it, so we don't need this one here. We don't need the styles anymore, the styles for the manipulating of our DOM, so we are only going to focus on this. And this is going to be interesting. Okay. So an array, I want to give you an example of an array. I can say, let array1 is equal to be, like I said, banana, shoes, oranges, yes, apple, and you're going to stop there. So having it like this is our array. If you want to see what's being displayed here and if everything is running correctly as intended, we are going to log. We are going to console log our array. So what happens if we do that? I'm going to save, and voila, we have our console log displaying everything that we need. We have index 1, it is banana, index 0 is banana, sorry, index 1 is shoes, index 3, index 2 is oranges, index 3 is apple. But the length of the array is 4. The length of the array is 4. This is going to be very interesting. So now that we have that in place, what can we do about it? Now, array methods. What is an array methods? Array methods are built-in functions in programming languages such as JavaScript that allow for manipulation and management of arrays. Remember, we did DOM manipulation. Now we are getting into a smaller cage, now the array. So the array, we have that array methods, and these are built-in functions in programming languages that allow for manipulation and management of arrays. Ready? Ready? Let's jump into it. There are going to be a number of methods that we can think about and maybe we can try to experiment. I'm only going to pick a few that are very common in JavaScript, and we are going to dive deep into them by small examples. Then we are going to brainstorm together. Ready? Let's do this. Let's start. Let me delete this console log. I want to start with array method called push. This array method called push adds one or more elements to the end of an array. So in this example, if I'm going to have a push to this array, it's going to add here. Let me like that. Okay. So that is what it's going to do. Let's see an example. I'm going to create an empty array, and I'm going to have a variable called my array, and I'm going to assign it to an empty array. And before we go there is something very interesting that we need to know. There is how we do our variables. We declare variables. We can use a let, we can use a const, we can use a variable, a var. So for this case, let me just do const a variable 1. Then we can also have var my variable 2. What's the difference? I'm going to push this one upwards so that I'm going to explain it. Now, var used to be the only way we used to declare variables in JavaScript. That was ES5 and below. But now there came something that we couldn't manage doing it using var. I'm going to give you an example. var used to bring this insecurity of somebody trying to change the specific data without our knowledge, without the author's knowledge, because you're using a var. So when ES6 came to play, we introduced the let, which is number 5 there, and the const, which is number 6 there. So the let was supposed to make us have a variable that can be changed in the tree as you're continuing to call. So having let, we don't need a var because let can do what var can do. It's only that let is more secure than var, so you're using let. Now the const is even more secure because when you're going to define a variable, maybe declare a variable with a const, the const won't allow you to reassign the variable anywhere. Let me show you. When I'm going to have my array2, I can come here and say my array2 is equal to 5. Let me see. My array, I can give it an so 5, 4, 6. I can reassign it. I can equally do that with my array, and nothing will happen because it is meant to be loose so that we can reassign it. So you can say 9, 5, 0. But look at what's going to happen when you're going to change this one. So when you're trying to reassign this one, the first thing that happens, even if you're going to give this one, this one, this one, it's going to scream. Why is it screaming? Because const is meant to be more secure. No one, and it's meant to be that intentionally, that no one should change any variable that have been defined by the keyword const. You can change by a variable defined by the keyword let, but not const. So looking at it, we don't really need var. You can use it var if you are trying to do that old JavaScript version, ECMAScript, the previous version. But 2015 going forward, we are using let and const. So that is why we are not going to use var. Okay. And at some point, I'll be using const, but I'll tell you why I'm using it. Though the better part of this example, I'm going to use let, because let is going to give us what we want. Okay, get the difference? Good. Now, we have our array. This is my array. Now, I want to add some items there. And we said you're going to use an input array method called push. How are we going to add something inside that array? First of all, I want to console log my array. So when I console log my array, it's going to be an empty array. Now what I'm going to do inside here, I'm going to have my array. I want you to push something inside me, and I'm going to call it banana. And with this, let me delete this part because we don't need it anymore. So when I save this, it's banana. Why is there banana? Because this is the empty array and we are pushing a banana inside my array. And you're console logging the array because this one is going to be updated. The array is going to be updated with the new data that you're pushing. Then we can still duplicate this. Let me duplicate this several times so that we can have different items. Sorry. And have different items. So I'm going to push the banana, I'm going to push an apple, I'm going to push oranges, I'm going to push, what can you push? Shoes. I love shoes. Shoes. So when I save, array has 4 items. And when I click this, it's going to give me length of 4, but the largest index is 3 because you're starting from 0, 1, 2, 3. Make sense? Good. Let's see another way of manipulating array, the array methods. I'm going to have another one called pop. A pop removes item from the end of the array. So if you are having, for instance, this array that we created here, and I'm just going to, okay, allow me to run it so that I can copy item. I'm going to copy them, and I'm going to have it here, and I'm going to, let me just call it this one. If I'm going too fast, let Emanuela know, then I'm going to change. Okay, now we have that array. Somebody might ask, you say that you're going to pop, and the pop is going to remove one item from the end of the array. How are you going to do that? Now, this is what it's going to do. When I'm going to have that list, I'm going to say my array, let me comment this one because we were done with it. My array dot, let array be that. So my array dot pop. So when we pop this, it's going to remove one item. Then we can do two things. We can display the item that has been popped, and we can display the new array. So if you're going to have the items and you're removing one item, you're going to have 4 items in an array, and you're removing one, we can display that one item that has been removed, and you can also display the remaining. So this is how we're going to do it. I'm going to say let moved item is equal to button. Then I can now console log. I can come here and say console.log removed item. Okay, so what do we expect the answer is going to be? Saying that this is our array. Because it's popping from the end, it's going to remove this one and it's going to be displayed. So we are going to save it. Boom, and this is what is being displayed. It is a shoe. Now let's see if our array remains the same. I'm going to have to console.log my array, and I'm going to save. So looking at this, we are seeing two things. We are seeing the item that we popped, and we are also seeing the 3 items that are remaining. This is very powerful. We can use this in a real world example in different ways. Okay, What other array method can we do? We can do a shift. Because we've done a push to the end of the array, and we've also done a pop from the end of the array. We now need to do something. What if we need to add an array in the front, an item in the front of an array? We need something else. We need to add using unshift. But because un feels negative, let us start with the positive of it, which is shift. Shift, this is our shift. Shift. So shift, what it does, it removes the element from an array and returns the element. So from the front of the array. So what's going to happen is we have that array, then it's going to remove the first index from it, then it's going to display that index to us. Then you can still display the array that has been manipulated and the item that has been removed. Let's have a look at it. We are going to allow me to have this up here so that we can be reusing instead of writing it all the time. Okay, so we have that array. Now what are we going to do with it? Shift. Remember, I want to console log my array. When I console log my array, this is what I get. I get 4 items: banana, apple, oranges, and shoes. Oranges and shoes. What are we going to do now? We are going to shift. We are removing one item from the beginning of the array. So this is what you're going to say: my array dot shift. So when you say my array dot shift, this is what is going to happen. It's going to remove that item. But now we need to assign it to a variable, and I want to call it let remove item is equal to this one, so that we can easily console log whatever we've removed. So I want to have this one inside here. Save it. So when you save, it has removed this item. That is the item that has been removed. Remember, it was in the first index. So what happens if you're going to console log the previous array? What's going to remain? Because we've moved the banana, we're going to remain apple, oranges, and shoes. That's nice. The same will apply if you're going to do unshift. It's going to return an item to that array. You want us to have a look at it? Let's see. I want to copy this, then comment. So I want to have unshift. Unshift, it's like unremove, like you return it now. So I'm going to have this, and I'm going to say unshift. So with unshift, it's very interesting. Unshift needs an argument, and it can be infinite. For example, we removed an item, but yes, right now, because we've commented this part, it's going to be different. It's going to be the same, banana, banana, going to be the same. Now we want to add unshift. Now you're adding in front of the array. We want to add our wallet. We want to add bottle. Now we want to say added. We can say so when we are trying to add, we can say added item or new array, because when I'm manipulating the array. So this one is going to be new array. So when you have the new array, we can come here and console log the new array, because we've added something, and it's going to be like that. This is very interesting. Very interesting. We've added the bottle and we've added the wallet. Very interesting. So what happens here? When you unshift, it adds. It's going to follow the order of how you're going to add your items. If the wallet comes first, it's going to be index 0. Then this one index 2. If you're going to change, whichever item is going to be the first one inside that parenthesis is going to be index 1, then index 2. Then the rest of the array that you had is just going to follow the sequence. Okay, that's very nice. There is another array method that you can use. It's called a slice. So a slice returns a new array with a selected portion of the original array. When you select it, because you're slicing, let me just give you an example. We are having this array the same way it is. Now, we need to slice it. I want to say, let sliced array is equal to my array, the original array dot slice. Then we are going to give it 2 arguments. One argument is going to be the index where it's going to start. Then we are going to have how many items from that index. Does it make sense? So if you're going to have like index 1 and you're going to have like 4, this is what is going to happen. My slice is going to start from index 1 going to index 4. Now let's see, we are going to console log sliced array. So what do we expect? Let me just come here and console log the other array. Console.log my array. So when I console log my array, this is what I'm going to get. Banana, apple, oranges, shoes. So this is the original array. Now I'm slicing it. The slice is go to index 1, which is this apple, index 1, up to index 4. So index 1, index 2, index 3, and because you don't have any other item, it's going to stop to the index that is there. But for this example, we are going to add items. Let me just add some few for the sake of example. I'm going to buy a keyboard. I'm going to buy a mouse. I'm going to, sorry, I need to wrap this one in now. Yeah. I'm going to add, we can also buy a bus, why not? I'm going to add font, why not? So we have it here. I'm going to remove this comma, it's misplaced. So I'm going to save it. Okay, so once we save it like that, this is what is going to happen. We are displaying the array the way it's supposed to be, then the slice, then the index, up to index 4. So index 4 is going to be the last item. So let's count. We are going to start from index 1, apple. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. So 4 is going to be the last item that is supposed to remain inside the basket. So we can't reach to 4. If you're going to select the keyboard 2, we need to change this one to 5, so that this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Then when it sees the next index to be 5, it stops at the current index, which is going to be index 4. Does it make sense? Makes sense. So when you have 1 and 5, the index is from index 1 up to less than 5. So less than 5 is 4. That is why it's going to pick these ones, 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sense? Good. There is another one that always confuses people. There is slice and splice. So splice is more or less like it, but adds or remove element from an array at a specified index position. So slice will only pick and display what it has been picked. But splice with a P, it's going to add or remove element from an array at a specified index position. So it is you to tell it what to do using a splice. So that is why splice is equally powerful. I chose it to be one of the examples because of that. There's a very big confusion when people are dealing with splice and slice. So splice, what does it do? Add or remove element from an array at a specific index. So we are going to go back to this index, to this array, the same way it is. And I'm going to, first of all, display it. So I'm going to display my array. When I display my array, I'm going to save. Now I have that array. Now we want to do the splice thing. We are going first of all to remove. Then after removing, we are going to add and see how it's going to be so interesting. So we are going to say let removed item is equal to my array dot splice. Okay. Now when you're going to have remove, we need to tell it which index, from which index to how many items. Okay, so we are going to say I'm going to remove from index 3 and I'm only going to remove one item. Let's see first. What is index 3? So this is 0, banana is 0, apple is 1, 2, 3. So we are going to remove from shoes. Going up to how many items? 1, because you're giving it one item. Now let me console log this first and see what you're getting. And I want to console log removed items and save. So it's going to be shoes just the same way we expected it to behave. So we've removed this item from it. Now we can display the original one, the original array, and see what we are getting. So this is the original before we spliced it. Now we spliced index 3 and you only did up to only one item, which it remained the current item, the current index. Then we displayed now the updated my array. So we have the banana, apple, oranges, keyboard, mouse, banana, bus, and phone. We have it display, which is very nice. Now, what else can we do with the splice? We can add an item. How can we add it? We need to tell it which index do you need to add, and from that index, which item do you need to change or need to add. Then you give it from that point. Now, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to say let you can say my array dot splice. Then this is what we're going to do. We're going to have the index of where we want to add an item. Then how are we going to do it? It is going to be from the immediate index going forward. So it's going to be 0. Now what are we adding? We are adding, let's say, a pairs. Okay. We are also adding kiwi. So when we display this, it's going to add from index 1 going forward. So I'm going to display the array, the original array that we had, and I'm saving it. So when you look at this, banana was index 0, apple was index 1. Now that is now where we are stopping at. We are stopping at index 1. Now from that index 1, immediately we are adding pear and kiwi, and that is why we are having pear and kiwi in between apples. Interesting? Very interesting. Another one that we can do, we can concat. It's called concat. And I'm going to, let me just comment this and copy this because I'm going to use it somewhere. Now, it's going to be concat. Okay. So what does concat do? Concat joins two or more arrays and returns a new array. If you have array 1, array 2, array 3, array 4, and you concat them, it's going to follow that order depending on which one came first when you're trying to write. If it is array 1, going to be array 1, then the one that is following next. So let's see. I'm going to console log the array that's the way it is, and I'm going to have another array. I'm going to say let array 2 equal to add computer. We can add microphone, mic, and we can add camera. So when we have these two, we can concat. Concatenation is linking. We can concat it into the other one. So this is what you're going to do. We are going to say let concatenated array is equal to my array dot concat. Are you concatenating array 2? So when we have this and we console log this, this is going to display the two arrays in one. So when I save, boom, we are having the banana, apple, oranges up to phone. Then you're adding the computer, mic, and the camera. So that is how we use the concat. You can concat two arrays. We also have another one that is so many people using it. It's called a sort. A sort. Let me just copy this first because I'm going to use it. And this is sort. So a sort, just a minute. Okay, we are good. Just making sure that everything is okay. Okay, nice. Okay, so we are having this sort, and I want to display, let me save and display these ones. So I want to sort. So what does sort do? It sorts the elements in that array, either alphabetically or numerically. So if I'm going to have numbers 1, 7, 10, 16, it's going to sort it either ascending order or descending order according to how we're going to tell it. And if you're going to have strings of array of strings, it's going to sort it alphabetically, and that is what you're going to do. So we have that, and we're going to say let sorted array equal to my array dot sort. Okay. By default, it's going to sort in ascending order from A, B, C, D. That is by default. So you're going to say console.log and you're going to say sorted array, and boom, it's sorted. The apple, banana, bus, mouse, oranges, shoes, keyboard, and phone. So that is how we do it. Okay, enough of that. Let's take some water, and you're going to jump into the last three that are very common. It's going to be a filter, map, and reduce. So you're going to start with filter, then go to map and reduce. This is going to be very interesting. Just a minute. Great. Let's comment this part and see. Now we are going to have our famous filter. So what does filter do? Filter creates a new array with elements that pass a certain test. For example, if you're going to have an array and you're going to check, let's say, an array of numbers, and you're going to check, maybe you want to return only numbers that are greater than 5 or maybe less than 5, filter is the method to use. And this is how it's done. First of all, I want to, let me just throw in an array with numbers. It's going to be true for the, and like that. Sorry. So we are going to see how are we going to get the even numbers. So what, first of all, what are even number? Even number is a number that if it is divided by 2, the remainder is 0. Okay, so we are going to see, I want to say let even numbers is equal to, now we get the array and you're going to say filter, and when you filter you give it a function that is going to give you the specific functionality that you want. Now we have the numbers, which is going to be numbers, which is now the name of the array, dot filter. What criteria are we going to use to filter? We are going to write a function, and that function is going to help us to filter. So this function, we are going to call it, you can either use declarative function. It's going to be a function that takes in a number and returns, it returns numbers, a specific number that is. So number module 2 is equal to 0. Yes. So once we do that, we are going to console log these numbers and see what we have. Console.log. First of all, let me log the numbers, the original arrays, which is this one. Then second, I'm going to log even numbers that we have. So I'm going to save and see what's going to happen. Boom. So the original array has 2, 4, 7, 9, 10, 12, 15. Now when you do the filtering, it's going to do this. It's going to take a function, and that function is going to take in a number from each element inside the numbers. Then it's going to do that specific number module 2. If it is equal to 0, then it's going to be appended to that event numbers, that even numbers. Okay, so that is what is happening here. Each number is going to have a module 2, then if it is 0, it's going to be appended into this. That is what you're getting here. Very interesting. How about we do greater than? Say let greater than 10. We want to see if all greater than 10 can be displayed. And right now we are saying only greater than 10 is 12 and 15. So this is what you're going to see. We are going to have the numbers, the original array, dot filter. So what is the filter going to do? Is going to take an action. And that action is going to be in form of a function. So function which takes in a number, okay, specific number, then it's going to return a number that is greater than 10. So when I come here and return this greater than 10, this, according to how we understand it, this is what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to come here and check if each number is greater than 10. If one number is greater than 10, is going to update an array, a new array called greater than 10, which we are trying to console log. Then at the end of the day, according to how you're seeing it, it's going to display only two items, 12 and 15. So let's save and see. Voila, that is the same case. It displayed 12 and 15. So that is how we use filter, and it's going to be handy. You can check, for example, if you're trying to have a big number, an object, and you're going to filter only object that has values. So for instance, you created a form in a web page, and people are keying in their data. And maybe intentionally you decided those fields are not mandatory to key in. Some might be null, some might have the data, but you're only going to display the data that has something, not blank. So you can use filter and check if the object and the specific key has a value, then display it. If it doesn't, don't display it. So that is how you can use filter in a real world scenario. Great. Now that we've seen that, we are going to jump straight and have map. Let me copy this because we're going to use it. Right, so we have that in place. Now, the map, famous map. When interacting with React, Next.js, the components, and maybe displaying data from APIs, you will be using map most frequently because it creates a new array with the results of calling a function for every item. Like when you're calling an item from the API, you have this API, then you pass it through a map, then it's going to display a specific item in that array, then it's going to display and style it however you want it, make the CSS look beautiful, and that is how we get all the data being displayed on the front page. Okay, let's see. We are having it here. Now we want to see if I want to get the double of this array. This is now where the map comes in. It changes. It creates a new array with results of calling a function for every array method, every array element. This is how we're going to do it. I'm going to get the double number just because I've mentioned it. Let's say doubled number is equal to, we add an S because it's going to be a couple of numbers. So numbers. So double number, we're going to see numbers, the array dot map. So once we map this, what do we get? We get a function. It takes in a function. That function takes in a number, that is the specific element inside that array. Then it's going to return that specific number, okay, times, and that is how we get a double. So I'm going to console log. Sorry. We are going to console log the numbers first so that you can see what you have. Then we are going to console log the doubled numbers. Okay, so I'm going to save and see what's going to happen. Voila, it has multiplied it by 2. So each number inside that array have been multiplied by 2. 2 times 2, 4. 4 times 2, 8. 7 times 2, 14, and so on and so forth. That is how we do map. It's crazy. You can display data from an API with it. You can double, you can manipulate that data and display it. So that is what we use with the map. It's a whole of experience having it to display data. So I'm very sure this is going to be very useful to you as you're going to interact with React components. The last one, the reduce, finally. So many questions when you're interacting with an interviewer, they might ask you, having this array, I want you to calculate the sum of it. How are we going to do it? Are we going to say, for instance, let me just copy this and comment this one. Then I'm going to have reduce. So if you're going to say, I want to reduce, so reduce applies a function to each element of an array, and reduces the array to a single value. So if you are going to reduce this array, we are going to have 2 plus 4, which is 6, plus 7, plus 9, plus 10, plus 12, plus 15. That one you can do very easily because you only have like less than 10 items. What if we have a million items in an array? What if we have a billion items, like countless infinite items? How are we going to do it? That's not where the reduce method comes in. Let's see how it's done. So I'm going to say let sum is equal to, now we're going back to it, numbers dot reduce. So we are reducing it. Very interesting. Before that, there is something that I might forget. Let me just handle it very fast. I want to comment this part, and I want us to have a look at this part. When I do this, we have a function here that takes in this number and returns number times 2. Remember when we started, I mentioned about ES6, ES5, and those kind of versions of JavaScript. Now this one, I want to convert this function into an arrow function, which is an ES6 function. Some people call it arrow function. Some people call it, because it has a fat arrow, call it a fat arrow function. It depends with how you're going to call it, but this is how it's going to be done. So if you're going to convert this into an arrow function, the first thing that you need to do, you need to remove this, the name function, and we are going to add here an arrow, fat arrow. When you save this, the result will be the same. Now we can even go further and remove the parentheses so that you can make it a one-liner function. So what's going to happen is this. So when you remove the parentheses, you even don't need the return. You can remove the return. So this one is the same as the one that we had earlier. This one is simple and takes only one line. When I save, the result is still the same. So that is what I'm going to do going forward. I'm going to use arrow function. I'm going to use ES6 functions. So now that we understand how it's done, we are going to get used to it as we continue. Now that's done. Let's comment and save this part, and then comment this one. Now the reduce also takes in a function. We call it a callback function. So any function that comes in as an argument to another function is called a callback function. So we are having a callback function in the reduce. Now that we don't have to do the function thing, but for the sake of remembering what you're doing, let me start with it, then I'm going to to remove it. Function. For the reduce, it has to take two things. We call it accumulator and current value. The accumulator is the total of what we currently have. Then current value is the current item in that array. So you can call it anything, you don't have to call it accumulator. For the sake of learning, because this is what you're going to see on most of the documentations, I'm going to use accumulator. Current value, and it's going to return accumulator plus current value. Okay, so when we do this and you console log, when you do this and console log, this is what you're going to get. Boom, 59. It has calculated all the items. I can add this one. I can add it. I can add any number. Bottom line is it's going to give us a value. So now it has calculated and given us 1,129, which is very good. So now let us break this one down into ES6, which was the arrow function that I talked about. First thing, you remove the function, the name function, we don't need it anymore. The second thing, you remove the return. The third thing, you can remove this if you want it to be a one-liner and have this one and remove all the parentheses. So what you're going to do, I'm going to have it here. So when I save, it still remains like that. Good. Thank you so much for being up to this stage. Now we've seen the methods, the array methods that we can use to manipulate our data and how we can use it. It is now time to see the benefits of using array methods. And because of that, I'm going to take another water. See you in some seconds. All right, so there are some benefits of using array methods that maybe we can discuss. The first thing that we can do, you can see when you're using array methods, it is efficient. Let me ask you, how long would it take you to have a function that calculates, that sums up all these arrays and display this one in a fraction of a second? How long will it take you? It's going to take some time. Yes, you can do it, but it's going to take some time. So it is efficient. You can do it very fast. Array methods are optimized for performance and provide a convenient and efficient way to manipulate arrays. Since array methods are built-in functions, they are usually faster than writing custom code to perform similar operations. Very fast. Number two, readability. Array method use clear and concise syntax that makes it easy to understand what the code is doing. This makes the code more readable and maintainable, which is important when working on a large or complex project. Or maybe if you're working in a team, it's going to be very important because so many people don't know how to name the variables, and this is going to be very straightforward. It is a reduce, and you know what reduce is doing. It is a map, you know what a map is doing. It is a filter, we know what a filter is doing. Number three, reusability. Array methods can be reused across multiple projects, which saves time and effort. This is especially useful for common operations such as sorting, filtering, and even searching, which are used frequently in many different applications, because currently we need those functionalities to make accessibility very to people who can maybe type, maybe who can read. They need all those functionalities. Number four, it's consistency. You see how solid that code was. And especially when I removed the function and converted the callback function into an arrow function, it was so solid, so easy to understand. So consistency breaks. The array methods provide consistent interface for working with arrays, regardless of programming languages, by the way, or platform being used. This makes it easier for developers to switch between different project or language without having to learn new APIs for each project because they are the same across all languages. Number 4, and the last one that I'm going to talk about today, is safety. Just imagine if you're going to write a function for that, and I'm writing it and I give it different name, 2, 3, 4 years to come, if somebody is going to interact with my code and maybe I give it a different name, how will they know? How is it going to be secure? Somebody can't maybe change what you're doing. How are they going to be sure that the function that I wrote there is the correct one that they're going to use at that time? How is it going to be secure that nobody can change it? So safety. Array methods help prevent common programming errors such as off by one errors, null pointer exceptions, and buffer overflows. This is because array method handle boundary cases automatically, ensuring that the code is always safe and correct. Did you like that session? Oh, you didn't like it. We are going to look at something very interesting. Very interesting. Let me see my checklist, what else I have for us. So we've seen overview of arrays. Nice. We are going to see we're going to jump into asynchronous JavaScript, because remember we are doing using array methods on DOM asynchronous JavaScript. So this is how we are going to use it. We can even go further and have a look at the what do we call it? More deep insights into the current method that we've done. But for the sake of time, I don't see why we should do that. But it is something that we can do. Maybe sometime, someday, if Manuel is going to invite me, I'm going to show you how you're going to focus on that specifically. Map, filter, and reduce. They're very powerful. Okay, in that case, we are going to jump into, let me see from my list. What else do we have? Yes, asynchronous JavaScript. Asynchronous JavaScript. So when I say asynchronous JavaScript, what is asynchronous JavaScript? And why are we saying asynchronous JavaScript? First of all, something that we need to bring it very live to us is, one, JavaScript is not by default asynchronous. It is synchronous, single-threaded language. What does that mean? It means it executes line after line. It waits for this line to finish for it to go to another line so that it can execute. Now, there are some way that you can go around it and make JavaScript asynchronous so that it can wait for something to be done to it while it is doing other things, so that when this one is done, it just displays it but continues with what it was doing previously. This is going to be very interesting. Very, very interesting. So asynchronous JavaScript is a way of writing JavaScript code that allow multiple tasks to be executed simultaneously without blocking the main execution thread. So we have the main execution thread that is running. It allows it without blocking. So we can branch from it and do something else while this one is running. So when this one, the side show is done, it's going to be pumped into the main, that is going to be displayed at the same time while the execution in the main thread continues. So there is no blocking. So that is what you're going to learn, how to make it asynchronous. It allows JavaScript to perform time-consuming operations such as network request or file I/O, input output, without freezing the user interface or slowing down the performance of the web page. In synchronous JavaScript, each task executed one after the other, and the execution of each task blocks the main thread until it is completed for it to pick up. This can cause the web page to become unresponsive, slow down the user experience. Oh, who would wish to have a website that takes 5 minutes to load, that takes long to display data that you need? No one. In this current era, no one. Asynchronous JavaScript uses a set of programming techniques to allow multiple tasks to be executed concurrently without blocking the main thread. These techniques include callbacks. We've already interacted with callbacks. Promises, which is a solution to the problem that you're going to see in callbacks. Then async and await, which is the new syntax of writing promises. Okay, so what is a callback? Somebody might ask. A callback is a function that is passed as an argument to another function and is executed when the operation is completed. So we have the function, we have the callback. It is only executed when the operation is completed. So callbacks allow JavaScript to perform asynchronous operation, such as network request, the file IO port, without blocking the main thread. On the other hand, promises is an object that represents the eventual completion or failure. Eventual completion or failure. So we can have the events coming. If it is completed or there is a failure, promise come in because it has a catch and we can display the data. So JavaScript, to perform multiple operations concurrently, we need a promise. Promises provide a cleaner and more structured way to handle asynchronous code than callbacks. That one you're going to have a look at it. It's going to be very interesting. Now, apart from callback and promises, I also mentioned async and await. Async and await is a modern syntax for writing asynchronous JavaScript code that makes it look more synchronous code. It allows JavaScript to perform a synchronous operation without blocking the main thread and provide a more readable and maintainable code. That is what we need. Readable, maintainable, something that you can really transfer it. It's going to be reusable. Get it? Nice. So why is asynchronous JavaScript important for web developers? Why can't we just follow the synchronous way? We execute one line after the other. Why? That question might come, but what we need to ask ourselves is why should we wait for synchronous function to do its all work for us to display data? Now, there are some reasons why we need asynchronous JavaScript in a web development. Okay, it has an improved user experience. Asynchronous JavaScript allows web application to perform time-consuming operations such as network request and database queries without blocking the main execution thread. This ensures that the user interface remains responsive and the user experience is not negatively impacted. Number two, increased performance. Asynchronous JavaScript can improve the performance of a web application by allowing multiple tasks to be executed simultaneously rather than one after the other. This can reduce the overall execution time and make application feel faster and more responsive. Everybody likes that. No? Good. Number three is scalability. Asynchronous JavaScript allows web application to handle large number of requests without becoming unresponsive or crashing. By executing multiple tasks concurrently, web application can handle more requests and serve more users at the same time. That is what we are seeing in these big websites like Amazon, like Facebook, like Twitter. More requests, more users. Number four, last but not least, better code structure. So asynchronous JavaScript allows developers to write cleaner, more structured code by separating time-consuming operation from the main execution thread. So by separating means, so we have the main execution, so time-consuming operations are being branched from it, then we are having that execution here. So while the main thread is continuing to run, we are branching and we're executing this. We are waiting for it to finish as we continue. Once this is done, then it is brought back to the main so that it can be displayed at the same time, or maybe after the other one. And that's going to be a very good experience if you're going to master how to use promises or async and await. Now, there are some common asynchronous operation examples that we can talk about. We can talk about fetching data from a server. We can talk user interaction. We can talk animation, timers and delay. We can talk reading and writing files. Maybe let me just talk a little bit about fetching data from a server. When a web application needs to retrieve data from a server, it usually performs an HTTP request using a network API like fetch or XML HTTP query request, or maybe right now we have like Axios and those kind of functionalities that are coming to play. Since the request involves communication over a network, it can take some time to complete, okay? Because we're waiting for it. We don't know what's happening in the server. Maybe the server is down, maybe something is happening in the server. But asynchronous programming techniques like promises or async and await can be useful to handle the response once it is received without blocking the main thread. So we can just send request from the server, we continue doing what you're doing. Once the request is prepared and the data is ready, we just punch into the web and the user is going to see seamless interaction of the data from the database. Good. User interaction. Many user interactions on a web page, such as clicking a button just the way we did it, or typing into a text field, are asynchronous operation. The user may perform several actions at once, and the application needs to be able to respond to each of them quickly without blocking the main thread. So when you're tapping, it responds and sends data to the server. If you need to store it somewhere, then that is going to be very helpful when it comes to playing. The animation right now, if you're a front-end developer and you can't do animation, so many people like beautiful things. They need to see things coming into the display in a very beautiful way, and you're trying to achieve the data that you are going to pull it from the server. You need to display it in a very nice way. So interaction, many users interact on the web page, such as clicking the button, just like I said. The user may perform several actions at once, remember, and the application needs to be able to respond to each of them quickly without blocking the main thread. So the animation as it runs, we see. We can see like since animation involve multiple updates over a period of time, they are usually implemented using asynchronous programming techniques like request animation frame, method or CSS animation. Right now we have frame motion, which is very cool. I use it in most of my projects. You can try it. It's super cool. You can try it and see how it goes. We can also have like another example is timers and delays. In some cases, a web application may need to delay an operation for a certain amount of time before proceeding. This can be accomplished using asynchronous techniques like set timeout or set interval. You just wrap your function inside the set timeout. I'll just give you an example. I'm going to have set timeout here, and I'm going to console log. Going to have that function, and we can say it's going to take like maybe some seconds that it's going to take. So when you run the set timeout, it's going to take 1 second before it displays whatever data you want to display. So that's going to be very helpful. It waits for you to do what you want to do before it displays the data, which is very good. Also, you can see it in reading and writing files. When a web application needs to read or write data to a file on a server or on the user's computer, it needs to perform a file I/O operation. So this operation can take some time to complete. Synchronous programming techniques like promises or async and await can be used to handle them without blocking the main thread, which is everything that we talked about today is really into the current principles that we need to see in software development. We don't want to see lagging, we don't want to see buffing, we don't want to wait for long for data to come, we don't want to see a blank web page waiting for data. We need to see things coming to display like instantly. And that is going to be very important, and you can see it coming to display. Now that we've seen, we've talked about the introduction to Asynchronous JavaScript, how about we jump into it and see how callback works practically, also see how promises works. Then we finish this session by seeing how async in a way it works. Then I'll open the window for us to ask questions. Then we're going to interact in that session. That's good? That's right. Let's jump into it and see how callback functions work. So I'm going to, okay, we don't need this here. Actually, what we need to create another file and call it callbacks.js. Okay. Now that we have callback.js, we don't need this in play. And because we need to call it somewhere, we need to go back to the index and change our JavaScript file, which is going to be callbacks. Good. This one you're good to go. I'm going to minimize that side. I'm going to close this one and I'm going to remain with callbacks. Okay. So callbacks is very interesting. It has pros and cons. There are some places you can use callbacks. There are some that you shouldn't use callbacks. We are going to look at them because there's what we call callback hell that you're going to see, and we need to know how to fix it at the end of the day. Okay, enough of the story. Let's see. So I'm going to have like 3 console logs, and I'm going just to copy it from here and paste it here. Okay, so when we console log this one, this is going to say Rogers Chayuga from Nairobi, Kenya. That is normally how this works. When you do a JavaScript, because it is synchronous, single-threaded language, and it can only do one thing at a time, it has only one call stack and can execute only one thing at a time. So it executes Rogers first, then Chayuga, then from Nairobi, Kenya. That's it. Suppose we are building an e-commerce website that needs a cart. So you go into an e-commerce website and select some item. It goes to that cart. Then you do the payment. Then after the payment, it takes you back to order page. Then maybe it updates your wallet and something like that. So this is what we can do. I want to have, let me just comment this one. We don't need it anymore. I'm going to have a cart. Const, remember I told you at some point I'll be using const. So cart, you can't change a cart. Cart is a cart. So it's going to be a const. You can't change it inside the code unless you are removing items from the cart. So I'm going to call it a const cart is equal to how can I get those items? Let me just grab them from somewhere here. And I'm going to post them here. So this is our cart, and it has banana, you have oranges, you have apples, and you have shoes. Okay, don't get it wrong. In a real world scenario, this cart would be like big objects, like a cart. A cart, you have a cart, and the first index is a banana. It has a price. It has how many bananas. It has the color. It has the size. So it's going to be like a big object. So for the sake of learning, we are going to use just array of strings that is going to display our data. So when you're dealing with like an e-commerce cart, for you to purchase and pay, you need some steps for you to do that. The first step is supposed to create an order. So these are the items. You're creating an order by pushing it into the cart. Then when it's inside the cart, you need to initiate a payment. Then after payment, you need to take you back to order page. Then at the same time, it needs to update your wallet. If you had some amount, you need to reduce according to the prices of the items. Okay, so I want to assume that with that we have, for create order, we have an API called create order. Okay, so we can just call it like that. Okay, API, I just want to call it like that. This is an API called create order. So this is going to initiate the creating of order. There is also another API called maybe proceed to checkout. What is this out of completion? Oh my God. Okay, let me just write it. API for proceed to payment. Okay, and this is going to be our API. And I'm going to call this one API for that. Okay, what that means. Then we can have another API that is going to update order page. Okay. Then we can have another API called update wallet. Update wallet. So these are 4 APIs. It is just an example of what we can do in an e-commerce website. So if we are going to do a callback, we need to go into stages. First, before it updates the wallet, it needs to update the order page. But before it updates the order page, it needs to take you to proceed payment so that you can make the payment for it to update the order page. But before you make the payment, you need to create an order. So if you're going to have this going to be our cart, so what you're going to do, let me just comment this so that it doesn't scream at me, but at least back in our mind, you know that is what you're going to do. So first of all, what you're going to do is we are going to have the API what we'll do first is to create an order. Okay, so this create an order is going to take 2 arguments. One is the cart list. Then, because the create order, it takes the cart and the next function so that we can know what are we going to do with the cart. We are going to proceed to payment. We are going to have an arrow function. Then this arrow function is going to return another API. Okay, for this sake, let me use the sake of understanding so that if you're used to the previous function, you're going to understand it even better with this example. I'm not going to use the R function. So this function is going to have API dot, okay, let me just copy it. So API create order takes in the cart and then callback function. That callback function returns another API which is proceeded to payment. Okay, after proceeding to payment, what do we need next? We need to update the order page. So to update the order page, it's going to have a function to update the order page. So we are going to have update order page. So after updating the order page, we also need to update the wallet. All these are dependent of each other. Function. Okay, so after that, we can also do something else. We can send an email. After that, we can do something else. Maybe we can remove the items from the from the list of items that are still in the store. So you can imagine how we are going to have all these APIs calling each other after the other. But now the challenge is going to be, after you've done everything in this place, and imagine that the proceed payment function was not written very well, it's not up to date, it's not correct, doesn't give out the returns that are supposed to be correct in terms of balance and everything. What happens next? The functions that are going to come after proceed payment function, they are going to be wrong. Everything is going to be wrong. But now that's not only the downside of this callback. The callback that you're going to do this way, it's going to expand horizontally, because as you look at it, if you're going to add more and more and more, we are going to have like what you call a pyramid of doom in programming. So it's going to be like a pyramid, which is not nice. Let me just update the wallets so that we can continue from there. Now we are updating the wallet. Imagine after updating the wallet, you continue like this. This is not going to be okay. This is going to be problematic as we continue to add APIs which are dependent of one after the other. This will lead to what we call the callback hell. Okay, so what is a callback hell? Just from the example, callback hell, this is where the code grows horizontally instead of vertical and becomes hard to read and maintain. So imagine we want to change something very small in update order page. So you can't change update order page alone. You have to also come and change the other codes that use that function, which is going to be hectic, problematic. You can be in a place just trying to solve one thing, but takes you weeks, months, days, and even ending up breaking all the code and starting over again, which is not good. So the downside of it, they are going to be what we call inversion of control. One, now that we've given our function to another function for execution, we are never sure whether it will be executed or not. Because if update order page is not written well, definitely update wallet is not going to work. So while you're seated down and waiting for update wallet to function, yes, the proceed payment was okay. Yes, the create order was okay. But now the update order page was not okay. So it's going to interfere with how you're going to display the wallet. So we are never sure what the higher order component is doing behind the scene. The higher order component, this is a new term. Oh my God, why am I bringing this here? So that you can understand it. The function that takes in another function as an argument, that function, it is a higher order component. Now the function that goes in another function as an argument, it is a callback function. Oh my God, Rogers, what are you saying? Yes. Function that takes in another function as an argument is an higher order component. And a function that goes in another function as an argument is a callback function. That is very good and very important concept to understand. So they depend on each other in the callback. So somebody came and said, no, we can't be doing all these things like this. We need to bring change. How are we going to bring change? So they invented what we call promises. So the promises were the solution to all these hard topics and concept and scalar records that we have to deal with it. So we brought in the promises. Promises allows us to chain async function, and they are easier to read and write. So instead of writing it like this, let me just show you how it could have been written. So I'll come here and with the same cut, okay, I would say API. Just copy it because it's giving me problems. It is auto-completing what I don't want. So the API called create order is going to take in the card. Okay. So when it takes in the card, we are going to have all these APIs displayed separately. Then if that one like API of create order is successful, then do this. I'm going to take in another callback function, which is API proceed to payment. Okay, after that, or maybe as it is doing that, it also goes to update the order page. So it's going to say, then while you're continuing to do that, I want you to do what? To update the order page. So it calls in the API for the order page. This is supposed to be here. This is supposed to be here. Then I have it here. Okay. Then while you are doing that, okay, this is supposed to be here. Forgive me, this is not the correct API. That is why we are having some scribbling around there, but at least you get the concept, the API that you're trying to do when you push it in a promise. So after that, or maybe as we continue, then call another callback function, and this is going to be update wallet. Okay, so that is how it runs. It becomes so beautiful. But now somebody will ask, what if there is an error somewhere? If there is an error, promise can catch it. This is how it's going to catch it. After all the thens, we can say catch. Okay, so the catch takes in an error, the error that it has been displayed, captured, and what is it going to do? You can decide. For me, I'm going to console log the error. So this is very clean. You can update it, you can expand it compared to this one. Imagine it was big. And this one, imagine it was big. You just add one line and say then. So it doesn't wait for each other. It executes simultaneously, and whichever comes first is displayed as it waits for the other one. So the main thread, execution thread, remains intact as we continue updating on the other end. Make sense? Great. Okay, so as we finish up, I see my time is up. As we finish up, we can look at the one example of an async function. So an async function is an updated version of a promise. So this was promise. And we are going to have an updated syntax of async await. Okay, so this one is going to be very simple for async and await. For async and await, we're just going to wrap all the thens inside the try. Then we are going to display a catch. And for that, I'm going to have, let me just copy what I have here and paste it here, then explain it as we finish. So this is how you're going to do async and await. We wrap all the awaits. First of all, you need to have a function that is going to be an async function. Then inside the async function, you're going to have try and a catch. So this catch is going to catch the errors, and this one is going to display the data. So if the data is going to be successful, it's going to be inside the await, is going to be displayed. It's going to be fail, is going to be inside the catch, because you only have three states in async and await and also the promise. We have the pending state, which is the default state when it's starting. We have the rejection or rejected, and we have the fulfilled. So that is how you're doing it. So all the fulfilled are going to be displayed, and if there is any rejection, is going to be console log. And that is all about what we're trying to discuss. And I'm so happy that we are now here. So in a nutshell, using array methods on the DOM asynchronous JavaScript is very interesting. Learning from the DOM, going back up to asynchronous JavaScript. I know that it has been long. I know you guys have questions. I don't know what we are going to tackle first as questions, but yeah, that was very interesting. Did you like it? I know you liked it. Okay. Any questions? Maybe you want to push a question, Manuela? Okay. Kingsburg saying question. I saw this question from LinkedIn test. From the HTML code structure, which of the element is the root element? Okay, that's very good question. So HTML, when you're having an HTML, the root element, first of all, we have this HTML. It has to be there. This is the root element. Then you have the head and the body as the siblings. So head and the body are siblings. HTML is the root, head, body, siblings. Then you can have other children inside either body or the head. Make sense? Good. Next question. Why do I use const paragraph? I'm new to JavaScript, that's why I'm asking. Where was it? Is it inside the introduction? Oh yeah, so we can have, like, for example, I know you're asking about this, but yeah, const paragraph. So const paragraph, like I said, we have three different ways of naming variables. We have let, var, and const. So var was previously used. Now we are using let and const. So const means you can't change it. So now here we are not changing. You can't change whatever data that you have in the paragraph. You can't change it. It remains like that. But if you had let, if you continue with the code going down, we can change it to anything else, and that is going to go away from what we are supposed to be doing. So we declare it with const so that you can't change it as we continue. Next question. Okay, there are two things that I'm thinking about. If you want to do React, another thing, and maybe you want to run all the runtimes, you need to install Node.js. But for the sake of just vanilla JavaScript, HTML and CSS, you don't need. You just need an IDE like I'm having here. This is called VS Code Studio. So you just download it, and the file that has the JavaScript, it needs to be .js. It needs to have a Node.js at the end of it. I mean the function of the const. Okay, I don't get the question. Maybe anyone wants to? Okay, I don't get. Oh, console log. Okay, maybe I'm not sure if this is what you're asking for, but console log, it helps to log whatever we are having. Like, for example, this console log error, it's going to display that error that we are trying to display inside the console of our browser. How do you get into this? You come and right click, you say inspect, and you open up this console, then you go to console, and it's going to log anything that you're going to be displayed inside the console log is going to be displayed inside that browser. Next question. How do you pop the second string? Where was it? That was in the introduction. Going back to it. Introduction to DOM. Did I delete it? Oh my god. I deleted it. But you can currently, the method that you are having, you can pop. Pop is removing from the end of the array, and shift is removing from the beginning of an array. If you want to insert or maybe remove from the middle of an array, use what you call a splice. So that array.splice, then you're going to give it specific index where you want to change and how many items you want to remove or maybe you want to add. So if you want to manipulate any array in between, you can't use neither a shift neither pop. You use a splice so that you can specify exactly which index that you want to change. Next. Let me check if my microphone is okay.
So, hello, Rogers. Can you hear me?
Just a minute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay. Are you okay?
Hello, Rogers. Can you hear me?
Okay, I think my mic is not. Let me just check something. Hold on.
Okay.
I think I can do some settings. I can't hear you.
Uh, can you hear me now?
Okay. Can you speak now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Oh wow. Okay, so apparently I think he has to do with his settings.
Yeah, I think
So
it's okay.
yeah, all right. Thank you so much, Rogers, for today's class. It
Yeah,
was
sure.
really quite an interesting and long class. Thank you so much. So everyone, yeah, it was really almost 3 hours. Thank you so much. Really
Yeah,
appreciate. Okay,
sure.
for everyone on the call, please, his LinkedIn handle is being displayed on the screen. So please do well and follow him on LinkedIn. And we earlier dropped that at the comments. So you can also connect with him and network. And also, if you have more questions, you can reach out to him and ask him also. Yeah, I think that is all. Thank you so much, Rogers, for today's class. Thank you so much. All right, so we're coming to the end of today's class. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night from wherever you are joining us from. And also one more thing, the front end track, you have your Q&A section tomorrow by 9 p.m. West African time on our Discord. So please, each of us, please make sure you do join us. And also don't forget 9 p.m. tomorrow. We're having a Q&A section for the front end track. And we're also having the second section today by 8 p.m. So please make sure you are in class by 8 p.m. West African time. Okay, thank you so much. So the students are sending their appreciation to you. Yeah, thank you. Okay, from
Thank you,
Prince.
Rogers.
All right.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this. In case you need me anytime, let me know. I'll be here to prepare for class.
All right, that's fine. We'll let you know.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Yes, everyone. Bye. See ya.
Bye.